Emina 35 na legislatura in Guam is back from recess. I'd like to thank the IT guys for making sure that they fixed the audio so that our listening audience could listen in detail to what's going on. So I just want to thank them for fixing the technical difficulties here. When we last left off, to my colleagues, we had an amendment done by Senator Pt.2, and she spoke briefly on it. And then we entertained Senator Kelly Marsh Titano to speak on the amendment. So, Assistant Majority Leader, I will recognize you to speak on the amendment.
Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the amendment. I think that transparency and being able to have a clear understanding of what the Commission is doing on behalf of the entire community of the island is important, and so for those reasons, I do support the amendment.
Anyone else on the amendment by Senator Titagui? If not, Senator Titagui, are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. If there's no one else who wishes to speak on the main motion, Senator, Assistant Majority Leader, Senator Titano, you are recognized on the closing.
Madam Speaker. During the interim, different members here today, all the members here today, have asked or agreed to be co-sponsors. So if I should do that in motion.
You can do it right now. I'll go ahead and accept that. On the motion to add every member as a co-sponsor who's not already on, without any objection, motion carries. Senator Titano, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker. So for my closing remarks, on Bill 59-35 COR, at an early point in the public hearing for Bill 59, a kulu was blown, followed by the singing of Whanogi Tomorrow. It was powerful on a stage for the world to hear. Malagutu para baihu extendi sendangkalu na seduas maasi para todos hamzu para I sapotamitu.
Senator Taichano, can we move it to the voting file, please? Por favor. Si duas masi.
Sainama Asi, Madam Speaker. I move to place Bill 35, Bill 59-35 into the voting file. COR into the voting file.
On that motion, without any objection, motion carries. At this time, we will entertain Bill number 13-35 COR. Senator Amanda Shelton, you are recognized. Yeah. Senator Shelton, would you like to set it aside until, on the motion to set aside without any objection? Senator Titagui, I will recognize you on Bill number 70-35 LS. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I hope you had a lovely lunch.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, I would like to move to place Bill 70-35 LS as amended by the Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation and Procurement, and would like to discuss it.
Can you read the author of the legislation and then the title, please, just for the record?
The author of the legislation, Madam Speaker, is myself, Senator Pt.2 Taitigui, along with Senator Sabina Flores and Senator James Moylan and Senator Clint Rangel. It's an act to add a new Article 5 to Chapter 51 of Division 2, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to creating a task force to gather information and create goals for policies concerning used oil management.
Senator Taitigui, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Bill 70, Madam Speaker, prioritizes discussions on used oil. Specifically, steps we must take in the immediate future to safely and properly manage oil substance once they have served their intended purposes. Madam Speaker, used oil, according to Guam EPA, is considered any oil that has been refined from crude oil or any synthetic oil that has been used and as a result of such use is contaminated by physical or chemical impurities. Used oil can be processed by facilities to produce energy. Madam Speaker, on the other hand, according to the Guam Environmental Protection Agency, waste oil is considered hazardous waste, whereby constituents like lead and other heavy metals compounded are introduced into these oils. That's what's called waste oil. Used oil is a little bit different. Waste oil generation can occur if products like brake fluids, certain solvents, or energy flush products are mixed with used oil. Waste oil disposal, if performed by incineration at EPA-permitted hazardous waste facilities in the U.S., Madam Speaker, issues surrounding used oil, which involves 1.5 to 2 million gallons a year on Guam, emerged from earlier discussions regarding the ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel law. During those discussions, particularly at a meeting I attended a few months ago where representatives from the Guam Environmental Protection Agency, Guam Power Authority, and the Office of the Attorney General, it was made clear Guam does not have a clear plan to deal with used oil once Cabris Units 1 and 2 are decommissioned. Aside from short periods of time, such as in 2016 when GPA did not accept used oil, GPA has since 1990, through a directive issued by the Governor Joe Ada, collected burned used oil. For your information, Madam Speaker, customers were charged $12 per gallon of used oil to be shipped off during that time, which otherwise, if it was not shipped out, this oil would cost only $1.50 per gallon. Sometimes two, depending on the company that would pick it up. Madam Speaker, in testimonies provided by the public hearing on Bill 70, GPA made it clear that we must all work together to find a solution. Because in several years, GPA, quote, in several years, GPA will no longer be able to burn used oil. Madam Speaker, we have a choice on how we want to continue managing used oil. Do we simply take no action on this critical issue and let the private sector figure things out on its own? Or, Madam Speaker, do we engage the private sector and regulatory agencies now and plan accordingly so that used oil doesn't end up damaging our environment after the cost of regular vehicle oil change goes up from $30 to maybe even $100, even as high as $150. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank Senator Sabina Paris, Clint Rogel, and Senator James Moylan for working closely with me on this measure and for extending their assistance should Bill 70 be moved forward. So, Madam Speaker, in a nutshell, GPA in a few more years will no longer be accepting used oil. They were using this to burn at Cabris 1 and 2. 1.5 to 2 million gallons of used oil is generated on Guam a year. We need to address this issue, and we need to address it now before it's too late. Madam Speaker, my office, with the assistance of Senator Paris and her committee, as meetings are scheduled in the weeks and months ahead, and as reported on the task force finding and policy recommendation, is prepared for the Governor and the Guam Legislature. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Sito Smas, Senator Chadwick. Anyone else wishing to speak on the main motion? On the main motion? If not, Senator Chadwick, would you like to put it in the voting file?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move to place Bill 70-35 as amended by the Committee on Environmental, Revenue and Taxation and Procurement into the third voting file.
Third reading voting file. On that motion, without any objection, motion carries. Senator Shelton, you are recognized on your bill. Third reading to speak.
Seduce Masi, Madam Speaker. I'd like to move Bill number 13-35 as amended by the Committee on Higher Education and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens to the third reading file to discuss.
Senator Shelton, could you just please read the title for me and then the
Sure.
authors?
Sure.
Okay.
Bill number 13-35 COR, an act to add a new chapter 32 to Title IX of the Guam Code Annotated relative to protecting elderly adults from abuse, neglect, and exploitation by providing criminal punishment for those who harm our Manamku and disabled people. Introduced by Amanda Shelton, Therese M. Terlahi, Tina Rose Munya Barnes, Regine Bisco-Lee, Jose Pito Terlahi, and Talina Cruz Nelson.
Please proceed. Sidus Masi.
Sidious Masi, Madam Speaker. I introduce Bill number 13-35 to protect our Manamku and people with disabilities from abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation by providing for additional criminal penalties for those who would harm some of our most vulnerable residents. The genesis of this bill was discovering that other states and jurisdictions had specific criminal penalties for the abuse and exploitation of these populations, but Guam had no specific statute in this regard. The overall concept of Bill 13-35 is simple. Just as we provide harsher criminal punishment to those who would harm a child because they are a vulnerable population, so too must we recognize the vulnerability and protection we must afford our Manamku and individuals with disabilities. Bill 13-35 does that in 3 specific areas: physical abuse, sexual abuse, and financial abuse. I want to thank the Division of Manamku under the law with these stricter penalties because these crimes are on the rise. In fact, according to our local Division of Senior Citizens of the Department of Public Health and Social Services, reports of financial exploitation of the elderly have increased by 32% since 2015 and is the #1 most reported form of abuse of the elderly or disabled on Guam. Still, according to the U.S. Department of Justice, only about 1 in 44 instances of elder financial exploitation is reported. Financial exploitation of the elderly and disabled can cause large economic losses and cause greater reliance on Medicare, Medicaid, and MIP. Examples of financial exploitation include using an ATM card without permission, forging a signature on a check or property title, threats of harm or destruction of property if money is not handed over. Our culture is one of respect, most especially for our Manamku and those in our community with disabilities. Unfortunately, there are those out there who exploit these populations for their own gain through threat, intimidation, or physical violence. While other jurisdictions had specific criminal penalties for the exploitation and abuse of these vulnerable groups, Guam had no specific law. Bill 13-35 would provide such criminal penalties for the financial exploitation or abuse of Manamku and the disabled, providing them an extra layer of protection. So I thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to speak, and I welcome again any language from my colleagues to help strengthen this bill and help protect these most vulnerable sectors of our population. Situas Masi.
Haguma, Senator, Legislative Secretary Shelton. Anyone on the main motion? Anyone on the main motion? Senator Clint Rigel, you are recognized on the main motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to ask the author of the bill if she would yield to a couple of questions.
Please, Senator, state your question.
Thank you. My understanding, the bill is modeled after a Florida statute. My first question is, does it duplicate anything that's in Guam's existing statute?
Thank you. Senator Shelton, would you like to answer that, Legislative Secretary?
Situas Masi, yes, I will yield to the question. The bill does not duplicate anything specifically. In the 32nd Guam Legislature, there was actually a bill aimed to protect tourists from certain crimes. And during the discussion of that bill, it was added in for people with disabilities and for the elderly. Well, that became Public Law 32-143, and that law can add years to conviction, but a conviction must first be obtained. Bill 13-35 provides a legal framework for charging separate crimes for the abuse of the elderly and particularly for financial abuse. It better defines the crime with the victim in mind. Bill 13-35 is victim-centric legislation to protect our elderly and people with disabilities. Bill 13-35 is the first to specifically make crimes against Manamku and people with disabilities a crime. This also conforms with the protection we give to children in Public Law 32-143. It enhances the sentences for crimes against children, while the criminal sexual conduct statute automatically classifies the assault of a minor as a first-degree felony. This two-layer protection for children would similarly now be for Manamku and for people with disabilities. Situas Masi.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. Senator Clint Rigel, does that answer your inquiry?
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I do have one more question.
Please state your question.
If the author would yield to this question. The definitions, could you cite if any of the definitions have been changed in this amended version? And if so, what those definitions are?
We're going to go ahead and take a moment's recess. The legislature's back from recess. Senator Shelton, would you like to answer the inquiry set by Senator Rajel?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. So there were a few definitions that we changed in the bill. And so the first definition was the definition of caregiver. This was a concern brought up by some of our colleagues as well as the staff of the Division of Senior Citizens, Adult Protective Services, who said that the definition of caregiver was a little too broad, so it was confusing. So we pared down the definition of caregiver to be clearer. We also shortened the definition of deception to mirror the Guam Code where it has already been defined. And the same for aggravated battery, which was changed to aggravated assault to match the Guam Code.
Senator Clinton Rajel, does that answer all your questions? Okay, thank you, Senator. Senator Clinton, you still have the floor. Are you okay? Thank you. On the main motion, I have Senator Luis Muñoz, then Senator then Senator Pt.2. Senator Luis, Senator, Uncle Pito? We will hear Senator Luis Muñoz first. Thank you. Thank you so very much, Senator. Senator Pito, y sana por favor consiga mo na. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator, for considering my age. Thank you very much. You know, Madam Speaker, I was looking through the bill and it mentioned actually the bill in its totality deals with age over 60. And I was thinking maybe, you know, I wanted to make an amendment on that because 55 years of age is considered senior citizen.
Yes, it is.
And I know even 60 years of age I'm covered anyway, but I just wanted to put up some point of concern that 55 years of age is considered senior citizen. So I would like to ask the main sponsor of the bill if she would accept that an amendment to bring it down to 55 years of age, since we're talking about senior citizens and, you know. And another thing I stand in support of the, okay. But I know Senator Kelly Mars Taitano introduced is proposing a bill on the amendment, and I stand in favor of that, but she hasn't announced it yet. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Si Zeus Masi, Senator Pito Terlai. Senator Luis Muñoz, you are recognized on the, is he, no, is he proffering that amendment, or is he giving it to Senator, I'm just going to take a really brief recess just to make sure I know where the amendment's coming from.
I'm making an amendment from 60 to...
The legislature's back from recess. Senator Terlahi put for dispensa. On the motion, on your motion, please repeat to make that amendment, and we'll go ahead and make that on page 3, line 1, to change the elderly age from 60 to 55. Am I
That's
right?
my amendment. That's my
Okay.
motion.
And if you can just ask for the motion to include legal to change it wherever necessary in the bill. And
I'm going to ask legal to do
Yeah,
that.
to-
Legal, can you do that?
no, on the motion, sir, on the motion, on the motion. Uncle Pito, say
On the motion from age 60 to 55.
and ask legal to change it on all the other.
And I'm
places.
asking legal to change it.
Yes, Throughout the bill. Throughout the bill.
throughout the bill.
On that motion, anyone wishing to speak? Senator Therese Talaya, I will recognize you on the Pito Talaya amendment from 60 to 55.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's a very good amendment. It makes a lot of sense because that is the age, but it doesn't correspond with the age of adult protective services. Their jurisdiction begins at the age of 60, and they are normally the ones who are doing these initial investigations, making the referrals to the AG's office. So I was worried that that amendment might impact them, but
Okay.
but I'm not sure because we're only making that amendment to this criminal statute and not to the APS's jurisdiction. So perhaps not. Maybe it would just allow for prosecution or reports by others outside of the APS. If it's going to affect APS, then I think it should be done by separate bill because I'm afraid of the impacts and we need to make sure that those are coordinated. But if it's only going to impact this criminal statute, then I guess it's okay. I'm wondering, see, we haven't had time to check if there's other parts in the criminal statute that define seniors for any other purpose. I'm not sure about that. But maybe, could we take a 1-minute recess, Madam Speaker? And I'll
We
just
will.
check real quick. Thank you.
Thank you. We are in recess. The 35th Guam Legislature is back from recess. Senator Terlai, you recognize.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I withdraw any objection to that. It's been clarified. I don't think there will have any impact, so it's good. It's a good amendment, and thank the sponsor of the amendment, Situ Mas.
Hagumas, Buen Pubetsu. On the amendment, anyone else wishing to speak? Senator Terlai, would you like to close or ask for the vote? On that, are there any objections? Hearing no objections, motion carries. Thank you, Senator Pito Terlai. Anyone else on the main motion? I have Senator Luis and then Senator Taitzano. Senator Luis, you are recognized on the main motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And out of respect, I wanted to give the elderly person a chance to go first.
Thank you very
I'm sure he'll appreciate that. Madam Speaker, May is Senior Citizens Month, and obviously no one is going to deny the opportunity for us to prevent abuse on our senior citizens. I don't think there's anyone on this floor that will oppose the intent of the bill, and I respect the author, and I'm in full support of the intent. My concern, and I brought it up already with the author, was that some of the language is very duplicative as far as what's in this bill and what's already currently a law. And so I just wanted to get some assurance from legal that maybe they were able to distinguish between the two, and that there be no confusion between when it actually comes time to prosecute which of the laws that they would prosecute under. So we do have a Vulnerable Victims Act already that does include, and thanks to the last author of the amendment, to reduce it down to 55, because there was a little discrepancy between the Vulnerable Victims Act at 55 and then this current bill that says 60 and above. So I thank the author and the mover of the last amendment for that. So if maybe legal can give me some assurance that the victim will be protected specifically under this law, and it won't be confused with what's going on with current law already, because there are some things that seem duplicative. I'm just going to bring them up real quickly. In the bill, special allegation of crime against elderly person, the victim, both 60 years of age and older, as well as suffer from an infirmity or disability, while the Vulnerable Victims Act states that the victim must be 55 or older for a special allegation to occur. Now, when it comes time to prosecute, do they prosecute for the crimes in this bill or under the Vulnerable Victims Act? And that's one of them. The other one is the crimes listed under subsection 3220, abuse, aggravated abuse, and neglect of an elderly person or disabled adult. Of the bill, they're substantially similar or identical to crimes contained under Chapter 19 of 9 GCA, Chapter 2, Article 10 of 10 GCA, and Chapter 82 of 10 GCA. They're also covered under the Vulnerable Victims Act. Bear with me, okay, Madam Speaker. Subsection 80.37.3 C1 and 4. That's another confusion, or may propose a confusion when it comes time to prosecute. The other one is the crimes listed under subsection 3230, lewd and lascivious offenses of the bill, are substantially similar or identical to crimes contained in Chapter 25 of 9 GCA, criminal sexual conduct. They're also covered under the Vulnerable Victims Act. So
35th Guam Legislature is back from recess. When we last left, there was an inquiry. Senator Luis, I'll recognize you. We had the time to speak. You both had the time to speak, so please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So basically, my last comment, my inquiry was the differences between a disabled adult and an elderly person. And I wanted to make that distinction. I still feel very uncomfortable about the language in this bill. I fully support the intent, but Madam Speaker, at the public hearing, the AG's office wasn't there to provide testimony, and I think that's very important that we hear from them before we proceed with this bill, because they deal with these cases on a daily basis, and just the mere fact that we didn't hear from them just makes me feel uncomfortable in supporting this language compared to what we already have in current law. Madam Speaker, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to refer this back to committee.
There has been a motion. Is there an objection? There's an objection. All those in favor of putting this bill back to committee, please signify by raising your hand. Three. Motion fails. 4. Anyone else on the main motion? Did Senator Ted speak already? So Senator, it will be Senator March Taichano, then Senator Taitagui. Okay. Senator March, did you wish to speak on the main motion?
Sedus Maasi, Madam Speaker. I have 2 amendments. I'd like to start with reading the first one.
Have you passed them out, Senator March?
Yes, everybody should have one.
Please proceed. Thank you.
Sedus Maasi, Madam Speaker. So the first one that I will look at is addressing line 19 on page 2. It reads, to amend section 32.10D of section 2 of the bill to read, D. Person with a disability means a person 18 years of age or older. Number 1, who suffers from a condition of physical or mental incapacitation due to a developmental disability, organic brain damage, or mental illness, or 2, has one or more physical or mental limitations that restrict the person's ability to perform the crossing out normal activities of daily living, ADLS. And then to amend the term disabled adult to read person with a disability in each other place that it appears in the bill. So this is based on, there was a letter by the Department of Public Health and Social Services written by the Senior Citizens Administrator of the Division of Senior Citizens, and these were 2 of his recommendations. It was very important to him to change the way that we think and speak about those amongst us who are able in many ways, but he wanted us to be focusing on the fact that they are a person first and then a person who has a disability. In the older language, disabled adult, it puts the focus on the disability and on the person as a person last. Then in the next section, in number 2, he had stated that to use the term normal creates these misperceptions, but there are instead these accepted terms that have a definition unto themselves, and that's why these terms are used very commonly in their field of expertise, and they are used commonly in other areas as well, and so they have a lot of understanding. Activities of daily living, also known as ADLS. These specifically look at issues dealing with a person's ability to eat on their own, dress on their own, bathe on their own, use the toilet on their own, getting in and out of a bed or chair on their own, and walking. And this therefore gives tools to those that are assessing a person or a situation. Sujus Masi.
Thank you. On that amendment, are there any objections? Senator Perez, you are recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't have an objection. I'm looking over the definition of a person with disability and looking at number 1 where it talks about physical, mental incapacitation due to developmental disability, organic brain damage, or mental illness. I believe there is a definition regarding disability, a federal definition, and that does not include, this term is not fully inclusive of that. So I don't have the amendment right now, but I think it should be expanded to include those other disabilities mentioned in the federal law.
So Senator Perez, are you going to proffer an amendment to include the federal definition of the person with disability?
I would need
I will
some
allow
time
you
to do
that
that. I think I need some time to do that.
Okay, I'm going to take a moment's recess. just to get further clarification. The 35th Guam Legislature is back in session. I'm going to address Senator Assistant Majority Leader, Senator Pt.2. I'll recognize you at this time.
Sejuis Masi, Madam Speaker. I move to recess until 10 a.m. tomorrow.
Okay. On that motion, without any objection, we are in recess.